Hey, Bonnie. Hey, I think I need to have my information updated on the how to contact members of council circular that we have. It has
Okay.
me as PO Box 206. You can remove that.
Okay.
I no longer use that.
Okay.
We are live on YouTube, and I finally have the Bellefontaine City Council YouTube page up. So you're going to your own YouTube page instead of the Bellefontaine Joint Rec District. So congratulations, we finally got technology caught up. So
We're moving up in the world.
you are.
Bonnie, you and Kyle got twin shirts.
What'd you say?
You and Kyle Springs got twin shirts.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Chris, we just successfully wrapped up third grade basketball, so I've kept my whistle on in case I need to give Zeb a technical foul during the meeting.
What would that be for?
You never know.
I don't even want to know. Too much facial hair?
It was really entertaining, Josh. I very much enjoyed being there.
Oh, good. I didn't make eye contact with everybody in the crowd. There was quite a few parents, so that was great to see. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Pete and Mick, do you guys want to meet with Streets Committee next week at 7:30? Would that work for your schedules?
Works for mine. What day?
Tuesday, 7:30.
In the morning or the night?
In the evening.
Okay. Yeah, Tuesday. I cannot. Neither can Mick. We have a preview.
That's close to their bedtime.
Good point.
Almost.
Could you meet earlier in the evening? Say like 5:30?
I could.
I
We have a
could.
launch meeting on Tuesday. That's why.
Okay.
At that time.
Great. Then I'll just announce that for Streets Committee next Tuesday at 5:30.
Where do you want to have it?
I was figuring we'd do it through Zoom.
Okay, you're going to set all that up and send us the numbers?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
That's February 16th, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I got it in my book.
Me too.
Okay.
Mary, just want to tell you before the meeting starts, nice presentation at Monday's meeting.
Thank you, Santa. Mick. Actually, that looks pretty good, and I hate telling a guy he looks pretty good, but beards work for some people, and they don't work for me. Mine comes in red and gray. That'd be like a Buckeye. Scarlet and gray beard. Thank you, Mick. That's a joy.
Oh, hello, doggy.
Richard, you at the ball game?
I'm ready for baseball.
There's been something circulating we'll get started here in a second, but there's been something circulating on the internet, and it's made itself to me, and maybe Josh has seen it too. It's about a Zoom call between two attorneys and a judge, and one of the attorneys accidentally activated a filter where he appears as a cat, and so the judge is telling him that he thinks there's a filter on, but he looks like a cat, and the cat's mouth is moving as he's talking to the judge. And it's pretty funny. If you guys see it, you got to check it out.
I don't know what kind of internet stuff he's into, but I don't know what he's talking about.
Hey, Josh, I like your filter tonight. Josh's filter looks like he's an attorney.
Yeah. An attorney wearing gym clothes.
Yeah. Josh has the uniform, right?
All right, everybody. It's now 7:30. I think we have everybody here with us. The Bellefontaine City Council is now in session. Please rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, both to be led by Councilman DeSoma.
Dear Lord, thank you for your love, your mercy, and your grace. Thank you for giving us a place. And as we conduct the people's business tonight, please guide us to do right in your eyes. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman DeSoma. We don't have any absences, so may I have a motion to suspend the reading of the minutes? Motion made by Mr. Springs, seconded by Mrs. James. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Coming up.
Don't we normally take a vote on that?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I guess
Okay.
I didn't call the roll either because you said there
No,
were absences.
we had a motion by Mr. Springs and a second by Mrs. James, and I was waiting for the roll to be called,
Sorry.
and it's just silence. I thought, well, wait a minute.
Okay.
Josh
Mrs. James.
Stolly's calling a technical on Bonnie for that one.
Mrs. James. Mrs. James, Mr. Kurtz,
Easy yes.
Yes.
Mr. Lyle,
Yes.
Mr. Reeser,
Yes.
Mr. Springs,
Here.
Mrs. Baker,
Here.
Mr. DeSoma.
Here and yes.
Two technicals now. We skipped the calling of the roll. That's on
That's
me.
what threw me.
That's on me. And then we had a motion and a second to suspend the reading of the minutes. So the reading of the minutes has been suspended, and we need to call the roll now.
Okay, Mrs. James,
Here.
Mr. Kurtz,
Here.
Mr. Lyle,
Here.
Mr. Reeser,
Here.
Mr. Springs,
Here.
Mrs. Baker,
Here.
Mr. DeSoma.
Here.
Okay, there are no absences. Welcome to the fun house. We've accepted the, are there any additions now that we've had a roll call vote on the motion to suspend the reading of the minutes? Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, mercifully, we'll move to administrative reports.
Good evening. You gotta keep a sense of humor. By the way, for roll call, I'm here this evening. Like to note that. Very brief remarks tonight. Thank you again for allowing me to share with you the state of the city a couple weeks ago when we gathered. I've now shared that a total of 4 times, and it's a joy to not only tell them that our city's still in a strong position, but to share the good work that we did together last year, onward and upward. I probably don't need to remind any of you, but former Mayor Don South had passed. I visited with family yesterday, and today he had a very nice service. And so Don has been put to rest. The governor and his wife were at the funeral home yesterday. They had a very close relationship. Secondly, I was present for a groundbreaking at Ohio High Point. So you may remember that levee passed some time ago, and now they're moving forward with a very exciting renovation. And so stay tuned for and watch that evolve in front of all of us. Proud moment, and certainly great for continued not only educating our young people, but adults and workforce. So it's vital to our community. Next, I'd like to mention that, Mr. President, I would ask you, and it's fine if you want to wait and recognize Chris Myers, but Chris was visiting with me today and shared a video. It only takes 4 minutes, but it takes you on a virtual tour of the new piece of property that we're so proud of, the work that's been done at Myra Nature Preserve. So that ends my report. So at your convenience, please recognize Mr. Meyer, and he could share with City Council tonight the good work that local dollars, grant dollars went to a nice addition to Myra. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any questions for the mayor? Seeing none, Mr. Mayor, we'll pick up Mr. Myers here at the end of the administrative reports if I don't forget or skip over it, or as has been the case so far tonight. Moving on to Service Safety Director, Mr. Henry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Council. Very short report this evening myself. I would just like to say thank you to our citizens and our businesses during the recent spate of snowstorms that we've had. They seem to be almost never ending or daily. We've had a little bit of trouble at times keeping up with each storm and being able to get it moved back before the next one comes. But our crews have been working long hours to try to get caught back up, and that has been a little troublesome with the freezing temperatures that have come in behind that. Typically, you get some melting, and the salt does a really nice job of getting rid of most of the snow and ice. But this time it's been a little bit different. As you can all tell, we're in the middle of a Arctic freeze right now, and that kind of makes it like concrete sometimes to get some of that snow out of certain places that it might normally be gone from already. So I just, again, want to thank everyone for their patience and letting our crews get their work done as fast as they can. That ends my report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Any questions for Mr. Henry? Seeing none, we'll move to Law Director, Mr. Stolley.
Thanks, Mr. President. I would like to echo those sentiments and thank all of our workers that have plowed the streets and kept our citizens safe. We don't have a huge staff, and they do great work. So thank you. And that ends my report, but I'll be glad to answer any questions if the council has them.
Thank you, Mr. Stolley. Any questions for Mr. Stolley? Seeing none, we'll move to Auditor's Report, Mr. Brentlinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentlinger. I guess that takes us to Parks and Recreation, Mr. Myers.
Thank you. We have shared this video to our social media platform, but in talking to the mayor today, we thought it'd be a great opportunity for the community to maybe see it through this forum as well. It's 3 minutes and 42 seconds, kind of a drone shots of during construction and then right at the end of construction. So if you'll bear with me and enjoy this, hopefully it's something we're really proud of. Thank you. Just an opportunity for you to see that. That's something that's put together by the contractor. Shows something they wanted to use as a showpiece. They were so proud of how construction went and everything. So it's something that we can be proud of as well. So thank you for that time, and have a great night.
Thank you,
By
Mr.
the way,
Myers.
that was Chris Myers on guitar as well.
No, I wish.
Is there any questions for Mr. Myers after seeing that video? Anybody? Any comments?
Looks great. It looks great. I've been out there when it was almost a dangerous thing to go down those steps, and many years.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Myers. Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
That concludes our administrative reports. We'll now move to reports of standing committees. Finance Committee, Mrs. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have one ordinance for first reading this evening. This is ordinance 2105, and this allows the Service Safety Director to go out for bids and to also enter into contract for the rehabilitate runway out at the airport. This will be paid for. 95% of the cost of this project will come from an FAA grant. The approximate cost is going to be $2,286,499, and the city will be responsible for 5% of that, and that'll be this is a grant that we will pay for up front, and then we will be reimbursed, and it'll go back into the capital improvement fund number 2. So the cost for the city will be about $114,325. So we'll be asking for first reading only on that one. And then we have one ordinance for second reading this evening, and that is to amend ordinance 2083, which let's see, it's removing the prosecutor salary from the department heads or the supervisors and department heads off of that pay scale, so that they will just be receiving the original amount that we intended that salary to be. And just a reminder, that'll be retroactive back to January 1st. 60% of the cost is taken care of by the city, and that the salary is $70,000 a year. So we'll be asking for second reading only, unless Mr. Stolley, is that second reading only okay? We discussed that, but I think that'll work. Okay, and that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mrs. Baker. Rules Committee, Mr. Kurtz.
Thanks, Mr. President. I have no report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Kurtz. Safety Committee, Mr. Lau. Mick, you are muted.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Mick. Utilities Committee, Mr. Springs.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
Thank you, Mr. Springs. Streets Committee, Mr. Reeser.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're going to have a Streets Committee meeting on Tuesday, the 16th at 5:30 over Zoom, and I will send out invitations to committee members, and I'll make it public for anyone else on council who'd like to come, or administration, and I'll send it out to the media for public information.
Thank you, Mr. Reeser. Just want to remind you that the committee meetings should be attended only by the members of the committee. If additional members of council do attend those meetings, that becomes a de facto council meeting. So we have to be careful about additional members of council attending those meetings. So just FYI for everybody, okay? Sidewalks, Curbs, and Parks Committee, Mrs. James.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Audit Committee, Mr. DeSoma.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you, Mr. DeSoma. That concludes the reports of standing committees. We'll now the portion of our meeting where we welcome communications from citizens. Per standing rule of the council, We ask that any citizens that wish to communicate with council submit their communications in writing to the clerk by 6:00 p.m. the Sunday before the council meeting, at which point the clerk will pass those communications along to me for review for decency and decorum. Before the meeting today, Bonnie notified me that there were no communications from any citizens that had been submitted. If there are any citizens that would like to communicate with council or share their concerns about any particular issue with council, you're welcome to email those concerns to the council clerk. Her email address is listed on the City Council Facebook page, Bellefontaine City Council Facebook page. So with that, that concludes the portion of our meeting for communications from citizens. We'll now move to ordinances for first reading.
An ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to seek proposals and/or advertise for bids and enter into contract with the selected contractor and/or bidders for the City of Bellefontaine to rehabilitate runway 725 5,000 foot times 100 foot project number 2021-03 and declaring an emergency in the City of Bellefontaine, Ohio.
Mrs. Baker,
Motion to pass on first reading only.
seconded by Mr. Springs.
Mrs. James,
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz,
Yes.
Mr. Lyle,
Yes.
Mr. Reeser,
Yes.
Mr. Springs,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. DeSoma.
Yes.
That concludes our ordinances and resolutions for first reading. We'll now move to ordinances and resolutions for second reading.
An ordinance amending ordinance 2083, authorizing and providing for compensation of certain department heads and supervisors, including the Bellefontaine Municipal Court prosecutor, removing the prosecutor from said pay classification, confirming the full-time prosecutor position and pay, and declaring an emergency in the City of Bellefontaine, Ohio.
Mrs. Baker,
Motion to pass on second reading only.
seconded by Mr. Springs.
Mrs. James,
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz,
Yes.
Mr. Lyle,
Yes.
Mr. Reeser,
Yes.
Mr. Springs,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. DeSoma.
Yes.
That concludes our ordinances and resolutions for second reading. There are no ordinances and resolutions for third reading. So that will conclude our legislative agenda this evening. Are there any communications from the clerk?
None, thank you.
Okay. Are there any communications from members of council? Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
Move we adjourn?
I got a
Second.
motion by Mrs. James and a second by Mr. Lyle. So we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Have a
We'll
good
get it
evening.
right next